What's up, everybody? Welcome to Rock Video Rental. I am Brandon. With me, as always, is Caleb. And this week, we will be doing our 100th episode.
Pew, 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 pew.
I can't believe it's been 100.
Oh, man, I know.
And I mean, really, what better movie to talk about than Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
I know. Wait, let's just go visit our childhood.
Pretty much. Before we get to all that, you've been watching anything interesting?
Yeah. So we watched Cruella,
Mm.
and that was pretty good. I think that was the only other movie that I watched, but it was a good movie, and I'm a little bit annoyed with how much they're doing like the live action stuff and whatnot, but I appreciate when they take more of a serious, darker perspective on things.
Yeah.
Like honestly, this movie by itself, if it was not connected to the whole 101 Dalmatians storyline, is great by itself. But actually the fact that there's the connection is what kind of bothers me. They do some cool connections in the movie, like they'll reference a few things, but the part that bothers me is that I feel like the way that they developed Cruella's character doesn't really line up for the way that she turns out to be in 101 Dalmatians.
Okay.
So I'll just leave it at that because I'm sure plenty of people will be watching it. But I mean, I'm being a little bit nitpicky, but I'm not connecting the dots there. There's a little disconnect there. So,
Hmm.
as far as anything else, I think I may be overlooking something because usually I like to try to watch one movie on my own. It's been a crazy week with work. Like my mind's been all over the place, and then it was the holiday too, so I'm trying to keep it straight. But we've been watching more of The Last Man Standing, getting through that. My wife hates the new actress. Newsflash. And I've just been watching Family Guy, so I think that's pretty much it. If I think of it, I'll bring it up. But what about
Wow.
you? Anything good?
Since last week when we talked about Harrison Ford, I was able to finally watch Witness,
Rock.
which is a pretty solid movie. With some interesting things in it. Like mostly seeing Danny Glover as a bad guy. It's kind of weird. All I could think of was Roger Murtaugh. So, like, and I think of all the movies that I've seen him in, the Lethal Weapon movies, uh, things like Gone Fishing and Operation Dumbo Drop. And it's just like, Danny Glover's always the good guy. So it's kind of interesting to see him as a bad guy. Uh, Still a very, very good movie. Other than that, still watching How I Met Your Mother. Um, I think we're like in the 7th or 8th season now, so we're getting towards that disappointing end. Um, didn't really watch too much Doogie Howser this past week. Kind of cooled on that. Man, the last thing I watched Return to Sleepaway Camp,
Okay.
which was supposed to be the original director's direct sequel to the original Sleepaway Camp, and it was made in 2008. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's got a lot of it's got a lot of like recurring characters, like the guy that played Ronnie, the big muscled up guy from the first one. He's
Okay.
in it, but this movie was made almost like 28 years later or something like that. So he's looking pretty old, but yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. It's not that great. I mean, the movie's got a 4.2 out of 10 on IMDb, so kind of tells you everything you need to know. But yeah, that's pretty much it on my end.
Rock.
So you want to dive into the sewers and cover Ninja Turtles?
Let's go back to the 90s.
All right.
Our family grows. The city itself will be our playground to use as we please, rewarding ourselves and punishing our enemies.
We've been looking for you, Miss O'Neill.
There is a new enemy, freaks of nature. Together, we will punish these creatures.
What the heck was that?
Looked like sort of a big turtle in a trench coat.
Awesome! Excellent! Yeah! I love being a turtle!
So, finally, getting a chance to talk about most likely my most watched movie as a kid. Right up there, I'd say. Either this one or part two. But we're going to talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from 1990. It is directed by Steve Barron, and the plot is 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles emerge from the shadows to protect New York City from a gang of criminal ninjas. Which, that plot couldn't be any more 80s. And I think, when we talked about movies that symbolize the 90s, I think we had that discussion one time in our previous episode, and this was one of my movies. And I always go back to the movies that fully encapsulate that strange time in our early 90s where things were still kind of 80s but were changing are this and Jason Takes Manhattan. There's nothing more late 80s, early 90s than those two movies to me. Maybe License to Drive is up there too. But the cast for this one, we got Judith Hoag as April O'Neil, Elias Koteas as Casey Jones.
Who is not the guy from SVU.
He just looks like him.
Who he looks a lot like him. Brandon and I had a conversation the other night, and I was about to fight him over this. And, if the internet did not exist, I would have been set in my ways.
Little did you know that I'm kind of a fan of Elias Koteas, so I would know if he was on this video. But we also have Josh Pays? He plays Raphael, and he's also the voice of Raphael. We have Brian Toshi, who is the voice of Leonardo. Robbie Rist, who is the voice of Michelangelo. Corey Feldman as the voice of Donatello. James Saito as Shredder. And then this last one is kind of funny to me, and I'll get to that in the trivia if you don't recognize it. It's his name. It's Kevin Clash as Splinter.
Is he from the band The Clash?
No, I'll get to it in trivia because it's pretty funny because I never noticed this. But yeah, like I said before, this is a movie that I've watched. People always say, "Oh, I've watched the movie 100 times." It's possible that I might have seen this movie like a legit 100 times.
I loved this movie as a kid, but I definitely did not watch it that much. Why? I'm not sure. I mean, we had the VHS. I'm pretty sure we had 1 and 2. I don't know if we had 3, but
yeah, I recently went through my VHSs and weeded out a whole bunch of them just to dump off in a garage sale. And I couldn't bring myself to get rid of the Turtles trilogy.
yeah.
I told my wife, these movies meant so much to me as a kid. They just had too much sentimental value.
Yeah, I probably, if I had them, I'd probably keep them. Now,
Yeah.
here's a question, though. Did you have them in the original, paper casing, or was it like the plastic bulky booklet? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, the clamshell?
Yeah.
No, I had them in the original paper.
Okay. I hate the clamshell. Like
I
the
probably got this like the week it came out on VHS
Okay.
because I would have been right around 4. I think I had this. I know I got the second one when it came out, and the third one I remember my mom buying for me when it came out. So I'm assuming I probably had this at one point. Not too long after it came out. I remember the case was black and it said Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles like with stacked font, and then under it had all the turtles standing there, and they're kind of like really dark and hard to make out. And like it was one of the only VHS tapes I had with the box was like puffed out,
Yeah.
like stamped or something. So the turtles were like in 3D, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. So, this follows kind of closely to the TV show and the comic. It kind of mixes the two together. We get to start off with like scenes of like crime going on, of these guys like stealing things, pickpocketing people, and at the time we also have April O'Neil, who's doing a report on the news about it. And she leaves work and she gets jumped by these guys, and the light goes out, gets knocked out, and like all of a sudden we hear the turtles, but we don't get to see them. And they they lay waste to all the hoods that attacked April. And they, when the cops show up, the turtles disappear into the sewer, and we finally get to see him. It was probably like 10 minutes into the movie.
Yeah, it was a little bit.
Yeah, I like how they waited a little bit and didn't just like throw them right at you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean they are ninjas, so it's like the act of not being seen.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's in their name, Ninja Turtles. So
unless you're from the UK, then they're called Hero Turtles. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, apparently the word ninja was like a no-no in Europe, so they were called Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles.
What?
And Michelangelo didn't use his nunchucks; he used a grappling hook.
Huh.
Yeah, it's a whole deal.
Weird.
Like even like their toys and stuff say Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. Should check it out sometime. It's pretty wild. But so now like the turtles go back to their hideout, that's where we meet Splinter, and they're like celebrating their victory and all this. And then we see like April button heads with her boss and the police chief, because she's basically just given the police the business live on TV. So he's like breathing down her neck.
Did that happen in the 90s?
I think it really only happened in the world of Ninja Turtles.
Okay, because I was just like, I never really knew the news back then, so I was just like, was this really a thing, or is this just something that they're putting into this movie?
Yeah. So after all that, we get another. Raphael is angry because he lost one of his weapons. He wasn't able to grab it before the cops showed up, and April took it. So he's talking about how he wants to get it back. We get another scene of like April leaving work and trying to get on the subway, and she gets jumped by the Foot Clan.
Dun dun dun.
And they start roughing her up, and then Raphael shows up and lays waste to all the guys. And then April's knocked out, so he takes her back to like their hideout, but he doesn't know that there's like part of the Foot Clan who's following him.
Idiot.
They get April back conscious, and she freaks out. Of course, I mean, seeing these mutant turtles and a huge rat. But Splinter starts telling the story of how, they became into existence. And this is where it differs a little bit. So in the comics, I believe, Splinter was always a rat. That was like, with a ninja master, and that's how he learned ninjutsu.
Mm-hmm.
And then, he stumbled across the turtles that were in mutagen, and which caused them to, grow into what they are now. And he taught them everything he knew about ninjutsu. Where in like the cartoon, Splinter was Hamato Yoshi, the ninja master that owned Splinter, but he had to retreat to the United States because of something that happened with Oroku Saki, who's Shredder, and the toxic waste like mixed his DNA with a rat's.
Okay.
So like he became a mutant rat. So like he was never in the movies and in the comic, Splinter was always a rat.
Okay.
In the cartoon, he was a human.
Yeah,
So
definitely
they switched it up a little bit.
Definitely did not know that.
Yeah. That's just my knowledge of Ninja Turtles. I was obsessed as a kid. So she finds all this out and everything, and the turtles escort April back to her home. She invites them in for pizza, and of course, turtles being obsessed with pizza follow her in. And they end up leaving, and they go back, and they find out that their like hideout has been like ransacked, and that the Foot Clan kidnapped Splinter. And then they return to April's apartment, and they spend the night there. This is kind of where we get to meet a little more of her boss and her boss's son, Danny.
Favorite character.
Oh, he's great. And then we find out that like Danny is like working for the Foot Clan. And Charles, her boss, is having trouble with him, and this is where we kind of get to meet Shredder. He's talking about once you join the Foot Clan and you're in the Foot Clan and their family and all that kind of stuff. And Danny speaks up because he saw like where the turtles are hiding, and he reports it to Shredder and all that. So this sends the Foot Clan like over to April's place, and they ambush Raphael first on the roof, who's like doing exercises to like calm his rage. So he basically gets like outnumbered because there's like 50 of these guys that all jump Raphael. They throw him through like a skylight, and that's where they fight with the other turtles. The turtles are able to like fight him off, and that's when like Casey Jones shows up. He had a brief altercation with Raphael earlier in the movie. He's kind of like just like a vigilante, and he helps them escape. Then they retreat, back to the sewers. Well, they retreat with April back to her like dad's cabin, like upstate, and that's where they go to recover with Raphael, who's like in bad shape. So we get some kind of like funny scenes back at the cabin that they have, and with one of the funny things I always remember is like Casey Jones and Donatello like insulting each other back and forth while they're trying to fix cars.
Yeah, that was fun. I forgot about that.
Yeah, and those two just like work so well off each other, and the turtles are basically like these actors that are inside these animatronic suits that were made by Jim Henson's company.
Mm-hmm.
So like the fact that like Elias Koteas as Casey Jones was able to like have such like great conversations with this
robot.
Is basically like a robot, and like somebody else doing their voice as a voiceover. was kind of impressive. I mean, the special effects in this are impressive themselves, like especially for the time.
Oh yeah. Well, and then their ability to act in those outfits and do all the martial arts they did was really impressive.
Yeah, for sure. So, Raphael finally comes conscious, and then they all get together, and Leonardo like contacts Splinter through astral projection, which I was gonna crack me up. And this is where they know where he's at. They go back to like rescue him. They go back to their sewer lair, and they find Danny there. Danny tells them where they're keeping Splinter, because he's been like sneaking off while he's at the Foot Clan's base and like having conversations with Splinter, who's basically setting him on a right path. This is where we get like the story too of who the Shredder is,
Dun,
and
dun.
how Splinter has a past with him, where Amato Yoshi was Splinter's owner, and Oroko Saki, who is also the Shredder, was like his rival. And Oroko Saki killed Splinter's owner and lopped off Splinter's ear. So they got like a history and all that, and then now we get the Turtles show up at the Foot Clan ninja base, and they face off with Shredder after they rescue Splinter and all that. And we get like this crazy fight scene at the top of a building, and like Shredder is just way too powerful for the Turtles.
Who conveniently attack him one at a time.
Of course, they totally Steven Seagal him, just one at a time. And Shredder's got like this big bow staff with like a knife on the end of it, and he's just laying waste to the Turtles. And that's when Splinter shows up, and he tells Shredder who he is. Shredder's like in a rage because Splinter left like a big scar on his face, and he charges at Splinter with like this spear, and Splinter like wraps nunchucks around the spear, like holds Shredder on the edge of this building, and Splinter tries telling him. He's basically saying a bunch of stuff where it's like, you're like your evilness or whatever is like your downfall kind of thing. And while he's trying to tell him all these words of wisdom, Shredder's grabbing a knife to like stab Splinter, and so Splinter just like grabs a knife, which causes Shredder to fall down into a garbage truck, and then Casey Jones goes and pulls the lever and like operates it, and it crushes Shredder, which is pretty brutal.
Yeah, when you stop and think about it.
That's somewhat geared towards kids, because I mean this is like PG-13. Because I mean there is swearing in it.
Yeah,
nothing too bad. There's like damn.
Yeah, that surprised me. I forgot. I forgot that happened, because that was like right at the beginning. I was like, oh yeah, this isn't like a little kids movie.
Yeah, it's kind of dark, which the original comic was dark and gory. Like you see Shredder getting stabbed and like limbs cut off and stuff. Like it's pretty brutal. And yeah, that's the end of the movie. We get the Turtles like celebrating, and April and Casey Jones, of course, kiss, and now they're in love. We gotta like get that back there, and then Danny goes back to his dad.
But then he changes his name to Dan.
Yeah, but now I'm Dan. Okay.
The end.
Yeah. So the acting in this is pretty solid. I mean, for what this movie is, I felt like Judith Hogue does a pretty good job as April.
Mhm.
I mentioned Elias Koteas. I've always enjoyed seeing him in things. He's mostly a character actor. Um, he kind of shows up in supporting roles a lot of times, but he's always really good, and he's got a pretty good range. Um, One of the earlier things I saw him in was Some Kind of Wonderful, which is a John Hughes movie where he plays
Mhm.
like this kind of punk guy who's in detention all the time in high school. Uh, and I mean, kind of similar to what he plays as Casey Jones, but he's shown up in other movies too, like The Haunting in Connecticut, some other later stuff like that. But yes, a guy that I always enjoy seeing in movies and things, you know, that he probably could have got more work, and I'm disappointed that he wasn't in the second Turtles movie. As far as the Turtles, like you said, pretty amazing that they're able to act in these big clunky suits and do the fight scenes at the same time.
Mhm.
The voice acting is really good. Corey Feldman has such a unique voice that he just fit perfectly doing one of the Turtles. He did the voice of Donatello.
Yeah.
Like that was pretty much a no-brainer. And Robbie Rist is one of the better voice actors too.
Yeah, it's Michelangelo because he's got the most personality out of all of them.
Oh yeah, for sure. And like his voice is so like cartoonish,
Mhm.
and it just I mean, this is a movie is based off a comic book and a cartoon, so it just only makes sense. Um, and I believe him and Josh Pays are the only two that did voices for in every single movie,
Okay.
because they changed it up. Even Corey Feldman, they changed him up, unfortunately.
No.
Yeah. Uh, but yeah, I mean, they did a great job of like handling the characters, making Shredder seem imposing. Because I
Yeah,
remember
even though
like the
his
first time I
outfit
saw
was,
this, like, how are they ever going to beat this guy? Because he's just so fast that he can
yeah,
counter everything that they have, and he's so much stronger than they are.
his outfit was a little weird,
Yeah, a little meh.
a little sparkly.
Yeah, it's better than his original action figure. Did you ever see that?
I'm not sure.
I had that. Um, he's got like this weird pose where he's like crouched over and he's wearing like all purple and blue. It's a terrible pose because he couldn't stand up.
Oh, I think I see what you're talking about. He didn't have a shirt on.
Yeah, he was shirtless, had black pants with like blue spikes on it.
Yeah,
He had a purple cape. Yeah, he was pretty terrible looking.
you can get for $12 on eBay.
I think I got it in a Rubbermaid tote somewhere in my parents' garage, along with all my other turtles.
Nice.
But yeah, any like favorite scenes and stuff you had?
Oh man, so much of this I kind of forgot. I mean, because all the movies kind of blend together a little bit, and so I forgot about how the movie started. I forgot when and how they kind of told the story
Mm-hmm.
of the origins of the turtles. I forgot how funny they look as baby turtles.
Yeah. Radical, radical, radical.
But then also like I as mentioned before though, I forgot how well they performed in those outfits.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was just a blast to watch. There certainly were some slow parts, kind of sluggish, however you might say, but what was good. Favorite parts, you always got to enjoy the fighting. I think one of my favorite parts was where they really kind of started having more fun with it when they came back from the farmhouse and they had their first fight and they kind of started having more fun with the choreography. Like one of them was riding on the skateboard and attacking people,
Yeah.
and they just made it a little bit more comedic. I remember really liking that scene as a kid. So
One of the more comedic scenes that I always enjoyed was the nunchuck battle.
Yeah.
where one of the Foot Clan guys has a nunchuck, and Michelangelo like calls him out, and he's doing like all these fancy moves and stuff, and of course Michelangelo just schools him.
Hmm.
He's just like, keep practicing. That always cracked me up.
Yeah. No, that was definitely memorable too. So yeah, a lot of good parts. Like I said, probably the one that stood out to me the most was that final. Well, not the final fight, but leading up to the final fight with the Foot Clan.
Yeah. Um, Another thing that always like stood out to me in this movie was when they first show the Foot Clan's like um base, and there's
Yeah,
like all these young kids skateboarding and playing all these like old video games, and it's even cooler to look at now.
and smoking.
Yeah, and smoking. It's even cooler to look at now because you can like pick out all the old school video games in the background.
Hmm.
Like Narc was one of them, which was a big deal back in the day. And it only makes it even more early 90s because there's an MC Hammer song playing.
Oh yeah, I did pick up on that.
This movie, like I said, is a capsule of the early 90s, late 80s like style of fashion, music, and lingo. Because we get Cowabunga, Excellent,
Bossa Nova.
Chevy Nova, Radical, Rad. We get all those in there. There's lots of dudes and stuff. I guess very much in the way of like Bill and Ted too.
Oh yeah,
But yeah, just
dude.
it's funny to
How
look back at this and like this is what was considered cool back in the day.
how hilarious would it have been if they did a crossover with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Bill and Ted?
That would have been great. Dude, that would have been a better Ninja Turtles 3 than Ninja Turtles 3, but I mean, we'll get to that when we talk about it because they both go back in time.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that would have been awesome. Did you know they did a crossover with Ninja Turtles and Batman?
Yes,
Yeah, Batman versus Ninja Turtles.
I've not seen it, but I was aware of that.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either, but it's just a cool idea. But yeah, what's really impressive in this movie is how well like the turtles' mouths match up to what they're saying.
Yes.
And I mean that just kind of goes to Jim Henson,
Yeah, absolutely.
which he was the master of puppetry.
Hmm.
But do you want to dive into the trivia and facts?
Let's do it.
Okay. So the first thing I mentioned was it's kind of interesting that Kevin Clash is a voice of Splinter. Do you know who Kevin Clash is?
No, I've purposely not clicked on his name here on
Okay.
IMDb because I wanted to.
He is a very famous voiceover man and puppeteer. He is a puppeteer of probably one of the most famous puppets in the world, and that's Elmo. He is the voice. He was the voice and the puppeteer of Elmo for like years. Somebody else does it now. I think he's retired. But yeah, I found that funny. Like, I was like, God, that name really sounds familiar. Like, is that Elmo? And I looked at him like, oh my gosh, it is Elmo.
That's funny.
So starting off with other one here, we got with someone you're a fan of, Robin Williams, who was a big fan of the Ninja Turtles franchise. He provided Judith Hoag with information regarding her character through his comic book collection, because the two were co-starring in the movie Cadillac Man from 1990, and that was during the production of the Ninja Turtles film. So she got all of her knowledge from Robin Williams.
Nice.
So Judith Hoag was asked not to reprise her role as April in the film sequels due to her own personal complaining. She was complaining particularly about the 6-day schedule and the amount of violence in the movie.
What?
Yeah. Wah, wah. Go on and do Halloween Town, Judith Hoag. And then do nothing.
Well, I pulled up her page on IMDb. One thing I will say is that she has aged very well.
Yeah, she looks pretty much the same.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny to look at.
Yeah, but other than that, yeah, I'm kind of like looking at it and I'm just like, I don't really. Apparently, she was in Armageddon.
I don't know.
Um,
It's been forever since I've seen that.
yeah, and that came out before this, so I don't know. But then anything else, nope, no idea.
Yeah. So we talked about how impressive it was that the actors in the turtle suits could do the fighting. So to help disguise how cumbersome and slow the turtles' costumes were, the dialogue scenes were shot at 23 frames per second. So when they were played at the normal speed of 24, they seemed like a bit sharper.
Huh.
And then for the same reason, the fight scenes were shot at 22 frames per second and then sped up.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It did kind of feel like the fight scenes were maybe a little sped up.
Yeah.
But I never would have guessed the talking scenes had been altered.
Yeah. So Shredder and the Foot Clan's hideout was filmed in an abandoned cement factory that was called Ideal Cement Factory outside of Wilmington, North Carolina. The location was also used for the set of Dino Hatton in Super Mario Brothers movie and Top Dollar's nightclub in the movie The Crow from 1994, which is an interesting movie. Have you ever seen that?
Wait, what was it?
The Crow?
Oh, the original?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about like some other Chrome. Yeah, I totally know that one.
Okay. So,
quick side note: did you hear that they made an extended version of the Super Mario Bros. Movie?
Yes, I just heard that got released on YouTube or something.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of fits in with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and since you brought it up, I thought I'd mention it.
Yeah, it's very much of that era. That's a movie we'll have to talk about sometime because it's interesting.
Yeah, it might fall under awesomely bad.
Yeah, I would say so. It's got kind of a cult following now.
Yeah.
So, in the script and novelization of the movie, the young boy that Tatsu attacks during the training actually dies from the beating. So the sounds of the boys breathing and the others saying that he'll be all right were added in the last minute after the movie ratings board objected the scene.
Huh.
Yeah,
Does anybody else die except for Shredder?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
So when Raphael got knocked into the trash can by Casey Jones, the face and the animatronics inside the head like caved in and broke the stunt guy's nose.
Oh man.
Yeah, so Raphael's original stunt guy was replaced by one of the foot soldier stuntmen named Ken Scott. Ken also did a lot of the major scenes as a foot soldier, including the nunchuck face-off.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So this was the last theatrical film of Jim Henson. He died about a month and a half after the film's release.
Oh man, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it sucks. So many major studios such as Disney Pictures, Columbia Pictures, MGM, Orion, Paramount, and Warner Brothers actually turned down the movie for distribution. They were worried that despite the popularity of the cartoon and the toy line, that it would be a box office disappointment like the He-Man movie was. And that was just a couple of years prior. The film finally found distribution roughly halfway through the initial production. And it was a small independent company at the time called New Line,
Ayo.
which at the time they were only known for distributing low budget B movies and art house fare and A Nightmare on Elm Street. Because that movie, it was called The House That Freddy Built. So that's how they made all their money. So Corey Feldman said he was only offered $1,500 to do the voice work for the movie. He accepted it, believing the producers who told him that this was only a small, low-budget independent movie, and they're hoping that it would make moderate success on VHS, if they were lucky. The movie ended up making millions of dollars at the box office. So the scene where Raphael exits the movie theater, that was originally going to be different. In the movie, he walks out and he says, "Where do they come up with this crap?" And like you can see in the marquee that it says Critters,
Yeah.
which is a pretty decent movie. I mean, it's a Gremlins ripoff, but it's pretty good. So it was originally, he was supposed to have said cool car, stupid costume, as reference to Batman from 1989, which was in the theaters during the making of the film.
Nice.
Yeah. So this one's kind of funny. This would crack me up. Pizza Hut engaged in a $20 million marketing campaign tied to the movie, despite the fact that Domino's was actually used as product placement in it, which is hilarious.
That is funny.
In the 1980s, the first pitch Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, they were the creators of Ninja Turtles, got for the film treatment was from Roger Corman. The idea was to have the Turtles played by 4 comedians who were popular at the time. Gallagher, Sam Kinison, Bobcat Goldthwait, and Billy Crystal. The actors would be dressed in turtle shells and have their arms and legs painted green.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, another treatment received at the time that took the Turtles into R-rated territory included a scene with a partially nude nuns on roller skates.
What?
Like, how is it that I have a hard time believing that's real. The whole thing with the comedians I can kind of believe because Roger Corman did some crazy stuff back in the day.
Yeah, I could believe that. The extra stuff is just like, what?
I can't imagine Gallagher, Sam Kinison, Bobcat Goldthwait, and Billy Crystal playing the Turtles.
Yeah.
None of the Turtles go, hello, all the time like Billy Crystal. Oh, gosh, that would have been awful. So another thing we always had was casting what ifs. So for the role of April O'Neil, Jennifer Beals, Marissa Tomei, Sandra Bullock, Nicole Kidman, Melanie Griffith, Sean Young, Lorraine Bracco, Winona Ryder, and Brooke Shields were all considered for the role.
I'm glad they didn't go with a big name.
I mean, at the time, I think Nicole Kidman would have been good at it. She kind of fits that character, but I think Brooke Shields would have been terrible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sure some of them would have done well, but I just think it kind of fit better with, I mean, nobody else was really that well known in it. I mean, sure, some of the voice actors and things like that, but there wasn't a real recognizable face,
Yeah. Marissa Tomei was probably too busy doing Oscar to do this. The last thing I got is the movie cost $13.5 million and made $135 million. So great success.
I'd say that's pretty good.
So let's dive into grades. You want to go first? We got a guess here. What am I doing? I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah.
We got IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes. What do you think those are?
IMDb 7.3.
6.8.
Pretty close.
Which I would say is fair.
Yeah.
It's one of those movies that, I like a lot. A lot of people really like it, but from a film standpoint, like it's not the greatest thing ever. The special effects are really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Rotten Tomatoes, critics, let's go 65%?
40.
Ooh.
Which I'm kind of surprised at. The only thing I could think of is maybe the critics didn't like how dark it was.
Maybe. And
gritty.
there was a little bit of, it was a little bit confusing. There was a lot of explaining to do.
Yeah. Yeah. But what do you think the audience score is?
68?
81.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It definitely is a fan favorite.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, now, what do you want to give your score?
I'll let you go first. I think it's been a while since you've gone first.
Yeah. Like I said, this is a movie I've seen probably 100 times. I think I've probably seen the second one more.
So you're saying it sucks.
Yeah. So, yeah. I definitely hate this movie. Not really. For some reason, like the second one, I always watched more. And I think it's because it was a little more kid-friendly. and at the time I was maybe like 7.
Well,
So
it's
I was
got
like
Vanilla Ice in it, so I mean,
super
come
into it. Yeah.
on.
I remember like watching it and pretending that I was a Ninja Turtle and like doing the fight moves and stuff.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, definitely a movie that had a huge impact on me as a kid. I was like all in on turtles. I had a turtle bedspread. I had all the toys. I had like pajamas, the underwear, a backpack. Like I watched a cartoon. I watched the movies all the time. I drew pictures of the Ninja Turtles, so it was definitely like my first big obsession as a kid. Um, and really probably like a big obsession with like most guys our age.
Nah.
I moved on from this to Power Rangers, which was the logical next step for most guys our age.
Oh yeah.
But I accept that this movie isn't perfect, but it does everything that I want it to. And I don't think there's been a better Turtles movie since. I don't think the Michael Bay one, the first one, that is as bad as a lot of people say. The second one was just boring. And then the sequels to this are, they are what they are. We'll talk about those next time. But this movie, I couldn't really give it anything less than a 5, just because it's a movie that it's like a comfort movie for me. Where, if I'm ever having like a bad day or something like that, I can watch this and it kind of cheers me up. And it's one of those I can go a little while without watching it, and then when I watch it, I just remember like all the lines and the songs and pretty much everything that happens in this movie. But yeah, definitely a 5 out of 5 for me. What about you?
Rock. Well, I am going to go with a 4.5.
Mm-hmm.
Dun, dun, dun. It just there were certain parts of it where it was a little, I don't know, like I said, a little bit they had to do a lot of explaining, a little bit slow, felt a little bit clunky. But nothing bad. So I feel like it's just kind of on that cusp of being I wouldn't say a perfect movie, but a 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
So I went with 4.5 out of 5. And yeah, so some of the things that just make it so good too is just as you were saying, like the appreciation of it, of how well they put it together. But then, I mean, it's not an easy thing to do, especially as we've seen with other Ninja Turtle movies after this.
Mm-hmm.
And they just really knocked it out of the park. So
yeah, for sure. Anything else you got to add?
I don't think so.
Rock. Yeah, when I started looking at the schedule and this just kind of fell into place, I'm like, how perfect is it that this is the movie that we're going to talk about? That's our 100th episode.
Oh yeah.
Something I know that we both saw at a young age and had a connection to. It just kind of worked perfectly that this was going to be our 100th. Does that mean that our 200th episode is going to be Power Rangers?
Oh man.
That's something we need, is a Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles crossover.
Oh, that would have been a good one.
Which I think they did at one point, to be honest. It was like live action Turtles on Power Rangers. Don't quote me, but I think that was a real thing.
Maybe, I don't know.
I know that they did like 3 different eras of the Turtle cartoons all on one cartoon in like the mid 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that there's like a Turtles and Power Rangers crossover somewhere, which my mind would have exploded back in the day. But yeah, so next time we're going to be talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. Probably my most watched movie as a kid. Someday we'll have to get to your most watched movie as a kid, Homeward Bound, The Incredible Journey.
Oh my gosh. I tried starting that the other day and it didn't really do it for, I mean, you know, it will be good to review someday, but it was funny.
Yeah, that one's definitely a product of its time.
Yes.
But yeah, so until then, as always, be kind and rewind.